Hey, welcome to the series by the great folks from the Angular, Flutter, and Firebase teams, where we show off great new features for our wonderful developer communities. Mark here from the Angular team, and I'm going to show you how to build an AI-powered web application that's built in Angular using AI tools to make it happen. All right, here's the application I'm updating today. It's a logistics application that customers can use to manage a fleet of vehicles. Now, this app has multiple pages, routes, and mapping functionality. But here's the challenge. I need to add an intelligence layer to this application. And that's my fancy way of saying that I'm going to add an AI feature to the app to make it more helpful to end users. Now, specifically, we're going to add a smart chat that can create tickets for the service queue, but from the chat itself. Now, this will allow users to make requests from the chat that actually do something, because we all roll our eyes when chats are not helpful. All right, in order to do that, I'll create an integration with the Gemini SDK and give the app some cool new features. Now, I'm about to cover how to install the tooling, so you can skip this section if you already know how to do this. All right, here's the stack that's powering this project. For the agent skills, I'm using the Angular developer skill and the Gemini SDK skills. For MCP servers, I'm going to use the Angular MCP and Chrome Dev Tools for agents. The Angular MCP can help with things like controlling the server, finding examples, etc., while Chrome Dev Tools for agents can interact with the browser and so much more. Then for command line tools, I'm using our friendly neighborhood Angular CLI and Gemini CLI. Okay, quickly before we go on, you may have a question of whether or not to use agent skills or MCP. Well, the answer is sort of both, because you can mix them both to create good outcomes. You see, MCP tools provide access to external data like API connections, while skills are behavioral instructions or workflow templates that teach an agent how to use those or other tools. So essentially, we can mix them both to great effect. To install the agent skills, I'll use the skills package from NPM. npx skills add github.com/angular/skills. Next, I'll install the Gemini SDK skills. First, the Gemini API dev skill, using the same skills package manager. So it's npx skills add github.com/google-gemini/Gemini-skills. Then the Gemini Interactions API skill with npx skills add github.com/google-gemini/Gemini-skills. For the MCP servers, I'll add configurations for both servers to the settings.json file in the Gemini folder in the project. Now remember, I've included links for both configurations in the descriptions. Now, there's one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to provide context to the model in the form of a Gemini.md file in the project. And specifically, I'm going to tell it about the skills and MCP servers I want it to use. Now, I could leave this for the model to discover, but I find that adding this context is so helpful. This is an abbreviated version of the file, but you can review this entire file yourself. Again, links in the description. All right, with all the tools configured, I can start up the Gemini CLI instance and begin prompting. For the first step in our software development process, I'm going to add the Gemini SDK to the app. Here's the intention of my prompt. Add Gemini support to my Angular project's backend. Next, I break down some technical details to shape the outcome that I'm looking for in my response from the model. For example, I take care to specify the package for the Gen AI SDK and which model to use in the application. Then the prompt covers the tasks that I want to accomplish in much more detail, even going so far as to provide verification steps. You see, this way, if anything comes up, Gemini CLI has additional context as to how it can make attempts at working through those issues. Now, I'll set Gemini CLI into planning mode as well, so I can verify the plan before moving forward. All right, time to run the prompt. Okay, I've sped up the sequence for this video, but the output displays which tools, MCP servers, and agent skills the agent used to generate the code. And I can also check to see if the verification plan worked. All right, it looks like everything worked. Awesome. At this point, it could also be helpful to review the code to see the changes made. I'll check the diff quickly. I can see the updates for adding the new route. Great, let's move on. All right, with a working backend in the application, the next step is to link the chat to the backend. Now, I'm going to prompt Gemini CLI again to generate the necessary code. My next prompt starts with my intention once again. Add communication from the client to the API endpoint via the chat window in the web app. Next, I specify two important tasks. First, to review the current code, and then to use a specific API with a few guidelines on how to work with that API. Okay, time to run this prompt. It appears that everything is working, but I should verify it by going to the browser and trying to chat with the agent intelligence layer that I've been adding to the application. Let's see. What is the recipe for chocolate chip cookies? Okay, check out this output. The model is responding correctly, but I don't want it answering random questions here. You see, the answer should be rooted in the context of our application. Let me try a different prompt. How many fleet vehicles are in critical state? Okay, right? So this makes sense because the model doesn't even know what I'm talking about because I haven't set up a connection between the app data and the model. Now, I want to give the model access to the application functions and data. And you know, there's actually a great way to do this. That is function calling, sometimes called tool calling. You see, function calling lets you connect models to external tools and APIs. Now, in this case, the tools are the application APIs, things such as fleet information and action-based APIs like adding a vehicle to the service queue. Now, as developers, we get to decide which tools we make available to the application agent. And guess what? I actually have a prompt for this one. I already know. Who would have guessed? Okay, you see, this prompt is a little beefier, so I'll break it down. Here's my intent, adding tool calling support. Now, here are the tasks that I want to accomplish. Task number 1, review the fleet-related functions in source/server.ts to identify candidates for tool calling. Then task number 2, implement multi-turn tool support. Here, I'm using my context as an engineer to shape the details a little bit. Here's what I mean. After checking out the docs for the Interactions API, I noticed that there are some specifics in the tool definition that I need to guide the model on when generating code. So that prompt includes that guidance. All right. Task number 3 provides guidance about keeping the UI in sync with what's happening in the application. Now, I know there are a few specifics to Angular here, but you can review this prompt in more details if you are interested. Now, one cool idea is to ask Gemini to explain this to you for even more great information. In task number 4, I cover the verification steps to determine if any or all of this actually worked. Finally, I added a code snippet for the model to use in order to generate the right format of the code for the Gen AI API. Now, I've included all of these prompts in the link so you can have a look and even adjust them to your needs as you like. Time to run this prompt and get the results. Now let's put this app to the test. Let's see if all of this prompting led to the outcomes that I even described. I'm going to start with the chat. Here's the first message. How many vehicles are in the fleet? All right, I got a correct answer that I can verify in the application. Here's another question. How many vehicles are in critical status? Oh, great. You see, we can verify this number using the application filters. If I filter by status, I should receive only 2 vehicles. Let's try it. Awesome, this looks great. Here's the really interesting part. I want the app agent to complete a task because everyone knows the frustration of having a chatbot that is not helpful. Here's the task. Add the vehicles that need service to the service queue. Now on the service page, I see 2 entries the app created. Excellent, so helpful. That is so awesome. All right, friends, during this video, I've successfully added an intelligence layer to an existing application by integrating Gemini SDK and using agentic tools. And guess what the best part of this whole thing is that this is only a small fraction of what's possible for the future of applications. Now, if you'd like to try out this process, all the links are in the description, and as a fun challenge, go through the code and build even more capabilities into your version of this application. You know what, everyone? Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to watch more of the videos in this series because there's so much cool stuff from Flutter and Firebase as well. Okay, friends, thanks for hanging out. I want you to get out there and build great apps. See ya.